This is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to space bugle beads on the jewel loom. Now the reason we're going to use the jewel loom for this particular project is because if you look here on one end, we have all of these great little notches, so that's going to help us keep it perfectly spaced, and this is going to be a lot easier to use for this application than another loom that would just have a single bar here at the top. Now today we are going to be using some 11/0 Miyuki Delicas. I also have some bugle beads here. Now these are the 6mm size, and these again are from Miyuki. I have my little slide clasp that I'm going to use and my size D NYMO in the blue. And for tools, we're going to be using our chain nose pliers here. I also have a pair of scissors. You can also use snips or cutters if you like. And then I have my jewel loom needle. Now the other thing that we'll need later is we're going to be using a little bit of the E6000 to help us kind of finish off our piece. And I have just a little scrap of wire. You can also use a toothpick as well. So if you have everything ready to go, let's go ahead and get started stringing up our loom. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our NYMO here and we're going to leave it on the spool and go ahead and kind of take off a good bit there. Now go ahead and flip over that jewel loom, and it has these little notches there on the end. So what we're going to do is just kind of wrap it around there and tie a simple overhand knot. And put that through and bring it down. Now let's go ahead and double knot that for a little added security. There we go. All right, so now your thread should be anchored here. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip that jewel loom back over. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up and over about an inch or so from one end. And now we're going to string it all the way down here to the bottom. And again, we're leaving it on our spool and just bring it straight across. And now flipping our jewel loom over, we're going to wrap it around that little notch there. Okay, so now we're going to come back over, and the best way to do it is to kind of set it in the notch that's right next to the one we just had there. Now this is going to look similar to any other one. Any other time you kind of string up your loom, so straight across again into the notch. We can wrap it around and pull back over, and we're going to create 3 on this one first pass here, okay? And now we're going to wrap it around. And now when we bring this one back over, we're going to add a little space. So kind of just hold that there. We don't want to lose tension, but I'm going to point using my little scrap of wire here down to one end. So if you just come real close, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on this 6th one is where we want to bring our thread up and over, just like so. So let's just double check that we have the right spacing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the 6th one is where we're going to set that. And you guessed it, we're going to come to the other side and repeat that. So let's make sure that we hit it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's going to lay in that 6th one there. And keeping good tension, I'm going to flip it around, anchor it, and now I'm going to go right next to it. And we're going to create a little center line here with the 2. Just like so. And now flip it around. And now we're going to come back up and over here. Let's see if I can just eyeball it at first. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I did it good. And we're going to come on the 6th one there and bring this down to the other side, keeping good tension. And let's see if I can eyeball this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the 6th one, perfect. So now we're going to repeat those 3. So we just need 2 more. So, and again, you're just working with these notches. And this is where this jewel loom is really good for this, because otherwise you have to kind of space this all out yourself. But this is going to keep that really good tension for you as well. All right, so now coming to this side, so we have, if you look under my finger here, we have 3, 2, 3, 5 spaces in between right there. So now we're going to flip this over and let's go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of extra thread there. Come in with our cutters. And I'm just going to trim off that tail there. And we can take our previous tail, and what we're going to do is we're going to wind this around at least once, bring it here, and we're going to tie a couple little overhand knots just to secure that. And don't worry, this will all be cut off later, so you are good to go. And just some simple little tie your shoe kind of overhand knots. All right, so now let's flip this back over, and now we are ready to start adding our beads. So what I want to do is I want to take off a good length of my NYMO, and you'll probably need to tie off and add thread as you work. We do have a video walking you through exactly that, but I'm just going to snip that off and set that aside. All right, so now let's go ahead and thread up our loom needle. Okay, so here's how I like to work. I like to go this way. You can also do that way. We're going to be going back and forth. So if you are right-handed or left-handed, you might find either one more comfortable for you. But the basic pattern that we're going to do here is we're going to pick up 3 of our Miyuki Delicas, 1 of our Bugle beads, 3 Delicas, 1 Bugle, 3 Delicas, and we are ready to go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this underneath and we're going to press it up. Now here's what I want to show you. There's a reason I have done it this way. Now you'll see that looking at the cords here, I have 2 of those Miyuki Delicas inside, and then I have a little buffer of 1 Delica, 1 Bugle bead, and 1 Delica. And then I have 1 in the center, and then 1 Delica, 1 Bugle bead, 1 Delica, and then the 2 on the outside. Now the reason I've decided to do this is because sometimes these Miyuki bugles can have little sharp edges. So what this is going to do is this is going to prevent that from kind of getting in the way and shredding the warp threads that we're going to have. So now I'm just kind of snaking it back through over top and bringing it out to the side. And now we have an opportunity to just sort of adjust everything. We want to leave a nice tail because we'll tie that off at the very end. We can pull through maybe just a little bit more so we can kind of set our tail out of the way. I also want to set our piece up a little high there so that we have space. Now you can always bring in a ruler and just say, okay, so I know that I want 6 inches, so you'll just be able to center that a little bit into your piece. All right, so let me show you the pattern one more time, and I'm going to do another pass with the loom. So again, we're going to do 3 of the Delicas, 1 of the Bugle beads, 3 of the Delicas, 1 Bugle, and 3 Delicas. Now you can also change up the pattern here in terms of, if you want to add different colors. We have a lot of colors to play with of both the Delicas and the Bugle beads. So you can really have a lot of fun and create some really dynamic pieces here. All right, so that was underneath, and now we're going to go over. And I like to kind of angle my needle like this so that I'm making sure that I'm not catching any of those threads because we don't want to drop a bead. It is fixable, but ideally we don't want to. And just like so. So now we're ready to keep weaving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave off camera here, and then I'm going to meet you on the other side, and I will show you how to finish it off using that slide clasp and the glue. So you'll be able to see an entire finishing technique for this loom design. All right, so we have finished our loom, and I've got the desired length that I want. So now we're going to tie off this end, but I like to rotate mine around because I'm right-handed. So just follow me as I just kind of rotate. There we go. So now I'm just going to take my needle with that extra little last piece of thread, go down through the next row, just beneath the one I'm coming out of, and we're just gonna slide that in. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that needle and I'm gonna go underneath and I'm gonna catch that little thread there. And all I wanna do is create a little loop, and then I'm just gonna put my needle through that loop and tie that off. And then you can just take this extra little piece here and go through a couple of those beads and just come out the other side. There we go. And now I can remove my needle, come in with my scissors, and just cut that off. All right, and then we're gonna do the same on this side. Now I'm already on the right, so if you want, you can kind of flip it around. But again, the basic principle is that we're just going to turn around that thread and go into the next row beneath it. And we just want to be able to catch one of our little threads under there. Create a little loop and go back through. Now the loom needle is nice and long. If you do find that you need to use a smaller needle to do this, I would recommend a size 12 beading needle. But for the most part, you should probably be okay. All right, and just pull that through. And don't worry if your beads kind of separate like that, that's totally normal. Come in and cut that off. All right, so now we can kind of set our needle and our little scraps of thread to the side. Now what we want to do is we're going to flip over our loom and we're going to cut it off of the back. So you can just cut right across all those little threads there and do on the same on the other side. Just cut right across, and now we can just remove our loom and set that aside. All right, so now we have our beautiful loom piece, and you can kind of see how it's going to wear there. Now what we want to do is we want to tie off all these little extra little threads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 on one side here, and I'm just going to separate out one of them and keep 2 of them together. And all we're going to do is we're just going to tie a little overhand knot and just bring that all the way down to the bottom there. And I'm just going to repeat that a couple of times. Don't worry if this is a little kind of messy for you, because this is all going to end up in our little slide end, so we don't need to be too precious with this. All right, I think 3 little knots will do it. So now I can set that aside. And now I'm going to do the same with the 2 in the center. So now we're just going to separate out 2 and tie a little knot. And like I said, these are just little overhand knots. They're just kind of going around a couple of times, and it should be enough to secure. We don't want to pull too tight because the threads could pull through the whole piece. So just be very gentle with it. And also you can kind of use something to set that aside and get it out of your way if you need to. All right, so again, on this last one here, we're just going to tie our 3 little overhand knots. And 3. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and then I'll be right back to show you the next step. Okay, so now we are going to use our E6000, and I'm just going to put a little bit here on my paper and smooth that out and make sure to close up that glue. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take our little scrap of wire, and don't be shy with the glue here, but we're going to come to each of these sides here, and we're going to add a little dab of glue right onto that knot. This is just going to help secure those little knots because we're going to try to cut them pretty close. And it's okay if your glue touches that last row of beads. We don't want to get too gluey, but it's okay if it does. And then come to this other side here. We're just going to repeat that. And again, we just want to keep our threads out of the way. There we go. And after you glue it like this, we're just going to let it sit for maybe about 10 minutes or so. And then we're going to move on to the final phase where we're going to add on that little slide clasp. And then you'll see the whole finished piece. All right, perfect. Okay, so now we've let our glue dry. So what we're gonna do is we can now pick up our piece here and come in with our scissors, and you'll see that I'm cutting it close to the end there, but not too close. We don't need to get too tight there. So we're gonna cut that off. And now we're gonna use a little bit more of our E6000. And again, just kind of add it to your little Post-it note there. And here's where we're gonna just slide on our little slide clasp. What I like to do first is let's go ahead and come in with those chain nose pliers like we had earlier. And we're just gonna bend that up just a little bit. And you can sort of bend it and close it on the table. That's the best way to do it on a smooth surface. Because now we can then come in with just a little tiny bit of glue. We just wanna get it onto our wire there. And just kind of spread it down and just kind of let it hit some of those walls there. Just a little added kind of support. All right, so then we come in and we're gonna slide on our little piece here, and we're gonna slide on just the ending row of beads. So just that last row, just kind of wiggle it. There we go, and that last little row there. And I'm just going to tuck that little end in, make sure he doesn't come out. And then again, just take your chain nose pliers and just a little bit on the end, just bend it ever so slightly. And then you can kind of close it on there. All right, so that's one end. So all you're going to do is repeat it on this other side here, and then I'll show you what we've got. So here we have our finished Bugle bead loom bracelet, and it's a really fun way to incorporate just different sizes of beads when you're working with the jewel loom. So I hope you're happy with the final result, and now you can go off and play with lots of colors and patterns and just really have fun with this type of design. You can get all of these supplies and see even more tutorial videos by heading over to Beadaholique.com. And if you're new to our YouTube channel here, be sure to hit that subscribe button below to get all the latest from Beadaholique.